Hello, this is Zachariah, whom you may recognize as one of the hosts of this very show. Along with what I do here with Dr. Caleb, I also do a lot of my own independent work over on Roll for Writing, which is my creative blog, which you may recognize from me plugging it at the end of these shows. Recently, I made my first foray into doing my own audio and visual projects, and to that end, I started an official YouTube channel for those pieces, Roll for Writing Presents. I released my first project under that name at the start of this month, April 2024, and have several more queued up at the time of this plug. Caleb, in addition to being my co-host here, is also one of my best friends, and so he invited me to record this and do a bit of in-house advertising. A big thank you to him, as well as a thank you for being an utter delight to work with here on SCPod. So, head on over to www.makeawritingcheck.blogspot.com and click on the link on the right-hand bar, or head on over to YouTube and search Roll for Writing Presents. Thank you. Back to the show.
Hello, fellow scholars and purveyors of morbid curiosities alike. I'm Dr. Caleb, joined by the nose spelunker himself, Dr. Zach. And this is SCPod. Zach, how are you today?
I want to see an ENT. I want to see an ENT just to make sure I myself do not have a hidden bunker up my own nose. Because that's now a fear I have.
You know, it's like sometimes one of my nostrils will get plugged, and I'm like, you gotta like almost secretly like go up there and be like, hey, get out of there.
Oh yeah, we all do
and like now I'm like, what if we all have Nazis hiding in our noses?
What if like you just start reaching up in there and then like you fall into an extra dimensional cavity that's now in your sinuses, and you just fall into your own nose as like a weird Ouroboros?
Oh, imagine what that looks like from the outside.
You're just like this spinning meat donut levitating in space by your own inertia.
And the only thing that's like comprehensible is just one nose.
Yeah. Well, it's a nose, but like it's just like a circular thing, and you're just like there, and it's like a Hieronymus Bosch painting. Just right there.
Exactly.
We should probably tell them what we're talking about this week. Otherwise, that's going to sound insane. Because all of that was on point.
So dear listener, Zach and I have just gotten off a crazy assignment. Today we are talking about item number SCP-108, Object Class Safe. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-108 is contained entirely by Subject 108-1. Subject 108-1 should be contained in a standard containment cell measuring 3 meters by 3 meters, furnished with whatever items are requested unless said items compromise security. Subject 108-1 is permitted to leave the room, wander freely, and eat in the main canteen. Medical examinations to be performed on Subject 108-1 daily. Filters to be changed as necessary. And Dr. Zach, if you would like to describe the SCP in question.
So yeah, what we're talking about is effectively a extra-dimensional space located in a person's nose. The person is a 51-year-old African-American woman that was at one point lived in rural Kentucky working as a cashier, and has since been moved to Site 17. The space itself, which is the actual anomaly, is a World War II era bunker that looked like it was a production facility for Messerschmitt fighter planes during the Second World War. And more concerningly, is effectively a mass grave of dead Nazis, including like scientists, engineers, Hitler Youth, as well as what we believe to be former slave workers that were taken by the Reich. And it's not entirely clear what happened. There seems to be a struggle, some evidence of a firefight, and more concerningly, cannibalism, but we're not really entirely sure what killed these people. or how they got into someone's nose. And there's some weird space, for lack of a word, space fuckery that is going on with this. In that the only way we can explore it is via endoscope, and so those things where you have to go get your colon checked out, one of those things, into this poor lady's nose, and through what can best be described as ship in a bottle techniques, is by one single component at a time building some LED lights inside the space, which, even though it is containing the entirety of this person's nose, is about 1 mile by 2 miles or 4 by 2 kilometers if you live anywhere but the United States. And so this is definitely what we would call, like in Lovecraft mythos, non-Euclidean geometry, just because the outside is it's bigger than the inside. But yeah, there's some weird stuff that goes on with how things can move in and out, because you can go in through the nose, but going through the nose or coming out of the nose, you have to go through the nasal cavity first and then outside the nose, which cannot be comfortable. Honestly, just looking at it, it's real goddamn weird. As far as where the bunker should have been, we came up with the idea that it may have been the old decommissioned Tempelhof airport outside Berlin, most notably, which was the site of the Berlin airlift after the end of World War II, when the Soviets tried to basically blockade Berlin from the former Allies. But yeah, as far as we know, or as far as we can tell, it's just a weird ass Nazi bunker inside this lady's nose, with no real idea of how it got in there. I do see there's an addendum. Dr. Caleb, did you have anything to add about that one?
Yeah. The addendum here, addendum 108-1, pretty much just goes into how everything was discovered, and gives a little bit of flavor to everything. So the lady in question, subject 108-1, she was trying to perform the human blockhead trick, where basically you, like, take a nail, put it in your nasal cavity, and, like, all the way up. And she lost her grip on the nail, and it just went right up into her nose. And she was overcome with a, quote, god-awful musty stench. And now, knowing what we know now, that cannot be very purified air. She was diagnosed with pneumonia, which was treated but kept coming back. The doctors would inspect her nose and be met with a total blackness rather than the inside of a nose. And after the doctor used an endoscope, which was fed in about a meter into the subject, the doctor noted seeing a Nazi eagle badge, after which the Foundation stepped in. As noted earlier by Dr. Zach, the Foundation uses a ship-in-a-bottle approach to do things inside of her nose, and actually built air filtration units so that, that god-awful musty stench wasn't coming through as much anymore. We, as the SCP Foundation, have thought of using this bunker as a safe place to store critical Foundation data, and we have yet to discover if the bunker is in her nose is a real place that can be discovered, and if there's an alternate entry into the bunker. There are several theories on it, but we have yet to come across the physical location. And as a final little note about everything, the nail that started all of this mess has never been found.
Yeah, I want to point out, just because I think it's kind of funny, is that the smell was described specifically as, quote, God's or hell's asshole smell.
I mean, can you blame, like, if this is truly a World War II era sealed bunker, like, you hear about, like, dead air and stuff like that. This is a whole other type of dead air.
Well, I mean, it's a mass grave. There's literally a pile of dead Nazis in there that's just been rotting in what is effectively hammer space. There's no air circulation in there. Other than, like, what can fit through one human woman's nose.
Right. And like that's even if there was air circulation prior to the whole nail trick to begin with.
Uh, I don't know necessarily what you were working on when we were assigned to this, but I was working on more of the investigative end of it, and I had a couple of questions. Is like, and I don't think necessarily the anomaly has anything to do with the woman in question so much as that I think that she was just on the receiving end of the anomaly, and I think that the nail is what caused it, because this was never a problem until that point.
So are you trying to say that the nail is anomalous?
I think the nail is the anomaly, and this kind of when I submitted my findings, I made a point of saying like, hey, we should probably try and find that nail. Um, because if we know, like, because she did the human blockhead experiment or the trick as part of her nephew's birthday party, and so that nail could just be around kids. And if it has the ability to summon basically a portal to a Nazi bunker, there's not only is it like a safety containment hazard, but also just like I have some questions regarding about the space itself, because I want to know if we replicated the circumstances of how 1081 created the space or access to the space in the first place, is if we did it to another person, does it create another space, or is it go leading into the same spot? And it could be used as effectively like as a not only just as storage as like was mentioned in the addendum, but also as effectively like like almost effectively like sci-fi wormhole travel, for lack of a more artful way of putting that, and just regardless of the space between 2 points, it would not be longer than 2 or 4 kilometers.
Yeah, yeah. I was just thinking about like, what if this is like a product defect and like because it says it's a galvanized nail, and what if like in the galvanization process, like I don't know, they did some weird things with the atoms in it and made a bunch of anomalous, and they have to do this mass recall. Like, who's to say that a kid doesn't touch this and like fiddle around with it and end up in a more dangerous place than a Nazi mass grave, like a Toys R Us,
right? Or God help you, like an EB's games.
Exactly.
Like, who knows what horrors are lying around there? But that's also kind of the other thing, is like we don't know if this is the only one or what exactly the processes of like activating the properties are. But all we do know is that there's at least one, and it's out there somewhere, and it's uncontained. And I feel like maybe finding that nail would be something that would answer a lot of questions.
Yeah, yeah. I during our 2 week research into 108 here, I never really actually thought about the nail being anomalous whatsoever. I just thought like, it was just conveniently two places that were connected somehow, you know. But now that you mention it, I do think that, I mean, even if it isn't anomalous, finding that nail would at least answer your questions. And at the end of the day, that's what matters.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like ultimately the Foundation doesn't necessarily care about the answer so much as it cares about like protecting baseline reality as we know it. But I don't know. I feel like as a doctor and someone who's doing the research, charged with doing the research, that's something we should definitely be concerned with. Because I'm wondering if, for classification purposes, whether or not this basically like demiplane is the anomaly or is a byproduct of another anomaly that has other properties that we don't have yet or aren't aware of yet. And
Yeah.
And also is like I have questions about the space itself as well. Is like, is this a singular instance of a one place? And so like if we had two people, if we had a 108-2, would they go to the same bunker, or there'd be multiple instances of the same space? And
Right,
critically,
right.
and I feel like this is something we could test later on, but if we got over some basic safety and ethical concerns, is how would severing a connection between this demiplane and the host affect them, or would they have some sort of maleffect?
Yeah, the one thing I kind of thought about is like, how does the subject breathe? Like, obviously it's only one nasal cavity, and you have another one that you can use to breathe and everything like that. But, like, does the air that she breathed go all the way through this bunker to get into her lungs.
Yeah, that's
a lot of lung capacity.
yeah. Because I mean, looking at what we know off the sort of the method, the lack of a better word, the pipeline, the way her nose now works, is I'm not entirely certain she is able to breathe through her nose, because one nostril effectively acts as a portal to this other space, and so air, light, and anything else goes in there, and then from the bunker goes back out through the other nostril into her nose, then out through her nose and into the world. And so effectively, like, I think she's a permanent mouth breather just because of the bunker.
I definitely I could understand that.
Because
I do think that the air filtration probably helped a little bit, but
that's just for the smell.
I can't imagine there being there would have to be some sort of other exit from the bunker in order for it to magically teleport to her airway. And even then, you would have to have some crazy sniffing power.
Yeah, and the other thing I wonder about is, because we've been able to build some limited exploration tools inside the space by just one small component at a time, which is fine. But I wonder over time if we were able to build some sort of interdimensional travel thing, which is something that we do have available through other departments and other teams and MTF. Is if one person, if we got someone else in there, if that would also cause any effect.
Oh yeah, that would be interesting.
Getting in would be one thing. Getting out, obviously, another safety concern.
Just got to go all Honey, I Shrunk the Kids on him.
Yeah. So I think ultimately this is one of those SCP entries where the questions raised by it are are definitely more interesting than the effect itself, because what you have effectively here is something that can sadly be found across a lot of Europe today still, is just ruins of a bygone time. I don't have any reason to believe that what happened to the staff inside the bunker itself is necessarily anomalous, just because if they were killed as part of the ending of the Second World War, they probably died at the hands of the Soviets, or at least they're slaves, which we have someone noted in the research file that they may have been Ukrainian, but who knows? The Nazis, as we're all kind of aware, took people from a lot of places, and so, but I don't really believe that what happened to the researchers is part of the anomaly so much as that may just be happenstance. But until we find that nail, I don't think that question can be answered.
Dr. Zach, I have a question for you. With your very vast knowledge of the history of the SCP Foundation, I'm not going to ask you to unveil any Foundation secrets on the podcast, but has there ever been anything tangentially related to the Nazis that would deal with phenomenon like SCPs?
Oh, yeah.
So, is there a world where possibly, obviously, the subject being 51 years old and World War II ending roughly 80 years ago, the timeline doesn't work out that well, but could there be a world where there was, maybe some tests or procedures done to kind of put this almost pocket dimension, but more, like you said, a wormhole into this lady, and the nail is just kind of punctured the thin veil that separated the two?
Off the top of my head, I don't know of any specific Nazi experiments that deal with this sort of anomaly specifically. They did do some stuff with anomalies, just because at the time everyone was doing stuff with anomalies because World War II was a desperate time. Including the Foundation, which had its own interests at the time. And so, like you rightly pointed out, I don't believe that the woman herself has anything to do specifically with anything that happened during the Second World War. I think it really does have something to do with the nail, and I feel like if we and like I kind of keep saying is if we found more about the nail and where it might have came from, that might answer that question. Because if that nail, if we were able to sort of deduce, it's more or less where it came from. That it was produced in Germany before 1945. That might be able to answer some questions, but like if it was produced, say, like in Pittsburgh in 1970, it would probably just be more. It would raise more questions than answers.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if that technically answers your question, but like I don't think it. I don't believe that 108-1 is necessarily related to anything involved with the SCP other than the fact that it's in her nose.
Well, and there's something that we're blatantly avoiding talking about here because despite all of our knowledge about the SCP Foundation, we really can't answer this. And that's Dr. Zach. What if this is just clown magic?
Clown magic abides by its own rules, and there are some powers that even the Foundation will not mess around with.
So there's a real possibility, this person was doing tricks for their nephew.
As a clown.
As a clown, and clowns operate by a whole other set of physics than what you and I know.
Like, yeah, I mean, the insert joke about clown car in non-Euclidean space here.
Well, I'm just thinking, like, think of all the classic clown, like pulling handkerchiefs out of your throat, like. Where do those handkerchiefs come from? A Nazi bunker.
Well, maybe. I don't mess around with clowns. That's a whole different ball of wax. And as far as I know, clowns are not an anomaly yet. Though there are clown-based anomalies.
They're the worst kept secret.
God, remember a couple years back we had all those clown sightings, and then I'm pretty sure that's related to an SCP we'll talk about later at some point.
Oh yes. I very vividly remember the clown epidemic of 2016.
Yeah, and I want to go ahead and thank the research and MTF members that made that stop.
Also, I just want to say that Nazi zombies has gotten really, really weird in the last couple years. Mm-hmm. And their marketing has just gone out the window with it. Like, this has got to take the cake for best zombies map.
Not if you're 108-1.
That's very true.
Not a fan. But I want to go ahead and say, like, 108-1 themselves is, even though they're in a weird circumstance, is taking this all pretty well. They're generally a delight to see around Site 17. And aside from the fact that they have a Nazi bunker in their nose, is just a normal person.
Yeah, from reading the addendum and everything, it does note that she was a little hesitant and a little feisty with Foundation staff, but it came to really just come into her own. And as anybody that's kind of forcibly inducted into the SCP Foundation would be, not everybody is like us that just like we're chomping at the bit to go touch some forbidden fruit,
Yeah, but I just want to point that out that like they're fine, they're taking it well as one can. But yeah, this is a weird one. Like, there's nothing dangerous about it as far as we know. It's just unexpected bunker.
Well, I do think that there's something that alludes to danger, and I have written in my notes here, in like 3 different pen colors, cannibalism, question mark.
No, that's what I mean though, like when I was talking about like with the bodies themselves, is like I think at some point this might have been, I don't think necessarily what happened to the people themselves was anomalous so much as that like at some point when there was effectively a plane shift happened that they were stuck there. But I don't think the bodies or the people themselves were anomalous so much as they died because of the anomaly, or at least the survivors did anyway.
Right, they were closed off from the rest of the world or something like that, and they just had to resort to cannibalism.
Yeah, my timeline of it is basically end of World War II happened. There was a firefight. People died, and then something happened, and then the plane shifted, and then whoever was stuck there at that point had only one source of food, which is unfortunately whoever was killed at that point.
Yeah. Okay. I could understand that.
That's the assumption I'm going off of anyway, but considering we can only get information via one endoscope at a time, it's
exploring a kilometer or two at a time. Like, yeah,
it can take a long time, and that's kind of what I'm hoping that we can figure out, like some sort of way to access the space with something other than an endoscope that also won't put 108-1 in any sort of danger.
Yeah, which is also difficult because we don't know what the space outside of this bunker is like. If it's contained in like, I'm thinking like, what if you had like broke through one of the walls or something and it just like ripped through a side of her nasal cavity?
Yeah, like one of the early researchers noted that there's some indication this might have been at the Tempelhof airport, which is again just outside Berlin. What I kind of want to wonder is why it didn't happen is that like we have people in Germany, they could go check.
Right, but if your theory about like plane shifting is right, and like this is in its own little, we take a drink pocket dimension, like there's the chance that this is conformed into her nasal cavity, but like that non-Euclidean structure just makes it vastly bigger than any nasal cavity could ever be.
Yeah, but what I was saying is that if we had people there on site, because the Tempelhof airport, or the former airport, is still there, and so at the very least, like we could verify if that space is connected or not connected to that location.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
It'll at least answer that basic question. I don't know why that hasn't been done yet. Probably for the same reason. For the same reason why they won't let us use a low light camera for the foot of the bed.
Yeah, or whatever. Same reason that we have the coffee machine upstairs.
Right? Yeah.
Money.
God damn it.
Speaking of money, what do you think is worse? Like, what would you rather go through? Being a retail cashier or harboring a Nazi bunker in your nostril?
As someone who has worked as a retail cashier, I will take the Nazi bunker any day of the week.
See, I think I have to agree, and I can't really think of like a worse fate.
Yeah, like the smell of like 80-year-old dead bodies is one thing, but dealing with bad customers is another.
Yeah, like I have to deal with getting my nose poked and prodded every day for for the rest of my life. I would still rather do that than have my back hurt at the end of the day.
Or just get screamed at for things that are just not your... you have nothing to do with.
Exactly.
Fucking retail. I do not miss it. I do not miss it.
So, like I started last episode, I kind of like to think of like the quote-unquote anomalous properties or the power scaling of these SCPs. And it's kind of hard because we know very, very little about this SCP in the grand scheme of things. We know a lot about it, but we don't know the mechanics about it.
Right.
So I have, and feel free to add on to this, like some sort of teleportation in some sense, either the bunker or the nose or like the thin veil that was poked out or whatever. There's some sort of teleportation going on. And or a pocket dimension.
Yeah.
That's all I got for it. Like it's so hard to conceptualize the mechanics of the anomalous properties here. It's almost like there's nothing anomalous going on here. It's just a thing found in a place it's not supposed to be.
Yeah, and I think I think you just nailed it. Is that in that the space itself, I don't think is the anomaly. I think it's a byproduct of another anomaly, which I think is either the nail or whatever happened to the space in the first place that made it be where it is. I don't think the space itself is actually anomalous. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I think it.
I did think at some point during my research on this, we I kind of almost came to the conclusion that whatever was poked out by the nail was actually like a fabric of space time almost, and like the nail wasn't anomalous, the bunker, the person. It's just this one little veil that was hidden in her nostril that when it was torn made this whole thing happen.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I mean, I think the nail is a really good lead to go on, especially because it seems like we can't find it.
Right, and again, like we could go to someone could go to Kentucky and just we know where she was. We know where the birthday party took place. We could try to find a nail. I mean, it's not the most ridiculous thing the Foundation would have ever done. Approve my travel request, you cowards. God. But yeah,
it's interesting, and we for the purpose of this podcast, Dr. Zach and I tried to talk very little about the SCPs prior, like when we're on the research together, or even if we're not on the research together, just so that we can like come with our own thoughts and everything. But there's not too much to really. I mean, like, there's so little known about what it is. It's just a question factory.
Yeah, pretty much. We were pretty sure that it's not dangerous. It's just a weird fucking spot. And it did give it did give 108-1 in pneumonia. It did do that
multiple times, actually.
And so, I mean, pneumonia is not a joke. That is dangerous. But I mean, like, speaking on like a level of reality preservation, it's not gonna do anything as far as we know.
Right. I mean, even the fact that there are like, correct me if I'm wrong, we found like planes and like tanks in this bunker.
Yeah,
right?
because I mean, it was like I said, it was a production facility for the Messerschmitt planes, which were a fight.
Yeah, so like there are definitely weapons in there, but it's just like we can't figure out how to get in there. So there's like the lady can't like pick her nose and like come out with a whole ass Abrams tank,
Yeah, and so I mean, it's like it's a pocket dimension. It's in a weird spot. It's probably harmless. We have a lot of questions about it, but I mean, until we find that nail or send someone to Germany, that's kind of where it is. And for whatever reason, no one's decided to look further than that.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I don't think we can stress it enough just how little we actually know about this. We know what it is, but we don't know the why it is.
Yeah, sometimes just as it was put to me so eloquently, sometimes shit just is.
You don't think it be how it is, but it do.
It do.
Well, Zach, do you have anything else that you can really add about Nazi bunkers, noses, or perhaps your own schnauzer?
I don't know. The only good Nazi's a dead Nazi.
Print it, put it on a shirt.
Absolutely.
Well, Zach, where can people find you?
They can find me over at makeawritingcheck.blogspot.com for weekly content regarding short fiction or whatever project I'm working on at the time.
Awesome. And you can find me at Calica1738 on both Twitter and Instagram. You can follow the podcast on Twitter at SCPod_cast. You can follow us on Instagram at SCPod.cast. We're available on Spotify and YouTube, working on Apple Podcasts and all that other stuff. There's a whole hang up with all that. Please remember to like, rate, follow, all the shill things. And yeah, Zach, what am I assigned to next week? I forget.
Let me check the document. Oh, how do you feel about Italian food?
I'd say I eat as much Italian food as any other person, maybe slightly more.
Have you ever been to New York, the state?
I have, once or twice.
Well, next week you're going to go talk about SCP-4201. And as your friend and colleague, I hope you enjoy cater duty.
Oh no. I don't like the sound of that one. Well, I guess look forward to that
And in the meantime, if you see a teddy bear walking the halls, run away.
thanks guys. We'll see you next time.
Take care.